3 times a year, Hebrew pilgrims made the journey to worship in Jerusalem. Much of the walk was an upward one, an ascent to the highest elevation in all of Israel. Songs were sung in sequence as devout followers climbed toward the temple together. The ascent was not just literal, but symbolic, a physical journey to refresh the memories, stories, and promises of God's faithfulness, of His character. These songs became known as the Psalms of Ascent, and we have them as a trail guide to this very moment to guide our upward journey toward Christ.
This is the heart of pilgrimage.
I think people struggle with lament because their trust in God gets damaged when we don't get what we want. We wonder if God is really for us. And so lament is about trusting God even though things are not going our way, that He has something good for us on the other side. I call it ruthless trust. Because it's not just a like, okay, God, sort of giving up or resignation. It's like, I'm clinging to God. I'm ruthlessly trusting in God.
Last week we studied Psalm 120 and were introduced to the idea of lament. And lament is something that many of us, especially those of us who grew up in cultures that didn't allow us to feel sad, we're uncomfortable with. But lament is a good thing. Many of the Psalms, they were written to inform us about how to live, how to praise, how to worship, how to engage in communities and get along with other people. But the Psalms were written to inform God, to tell Him how we truly feel. And that's why we love these Psalms of lament, because really they give us permission to cry out and to tell Him how we really feel. There are many pros to lament. We find intimacy with God and we find intimacy with others when we let them into what we're experiencing. They help us understand the both and, the now and the not yet, grieving what's past and being hopeful for what is to come.
It's okay to lament. God wants us to communicate with Him, with our feelings, with our true feelings, and expressing all what we feel. And if it doesn't happen what we're praying for, know that the Lord has a purpose.
As Christians, we don't have a great process for lamenting. The Jews do this process where they come together and they sit and they share and they bring food into the house and people speak on their memories for 7 days. And then they gather with friends every week for a whole year. They just have a good way of embracing each other during a time of lamentation. The beauty of our sisters in faith, our brothers in faith, is that they give us community to share the stories, because we have to share the stories. That's a part of the lamenting. That's a part of the grieving. You don't have to be a therapist to walk beside someone. You just have to be present.
There's something really interesting I'd like us all to think about. Why are there so many lamenting songs in the Psalms of Ascent? Maybe we would consider that God was drawing us into making space for lament. We could look at our own homes, our own family dynamics, even our churches, and feel the sense that there is not space or pause to lament. You know, lamenting is awkward. Do we like to be around the lamenter? Often no. But let's think about this. On the way, on the ascent to worship God, there was an invitation to bare our hearts in intimacy to God, to each other. And there's something fascinating that I've learned about this journey that I'm on right now, is that there's a lot of lamenting that happens on these trails. As you're walking, the stories of our heart actually unpeel. And you really can't hear those stories if you don't pace the person that you're with. And that can be a little awkward, maybe frustrating, and might even cause some restraint to slow our pace down enough to hear the cry of the heart of the woman or person next to us. So let's just think more about that this week. Where are the places that we might give ourselves and others permission to truly go into that place of lamenting in our heart of the pilgrimage?